I never thought I'd find myself sitting here, recounting the unraveling of my life over the past few months. It's strange how quickly things can change when you're least expecting it. I used to think I had a perfect life, a loving wife, great friends, and a promising career as a graphic designer. But as I look back, I realize I was blissfully naive. It all started with what I thought was just a healthy friendship circle. Let me introduce you to the characters in this twisted tale. I'm Owen, a 35-year-old graphic designer working for a large advertising agency. I love traveling and photography, and I try to lead an active lifestyle. Life was good, until it wasn't. Then there's Taylor, my wife, a 34-year-old journalist with an energetic and ambitious spirit. She had this incredible drive that I admired. She was always working on major reports and articles for a well-known magazine. I thought she was just chasing her dreams, and I respected that. Ryan, a 36-year-old friend from college, was always there to crack jokes and lighten the mood. He worked in IT and had a knack for making people laugh. But underneath that humor, I could sense a hint of envy towards my successes. Then there's his wife, Macy, a caring preschool teacher who supported Ryan in all his endeavors. She was sweet and nurturing, often the one to keep Ryan grounded. And how could I forget Leo? He's been my rock since college, always ready to lend an ear and offer advice. He had a way of speaking his mind, which sometimes led to disagreements, but I valued his frankness. Finally, there's Greta, Taylor's colleague. The tension between Taylor and Greta was palpable, both vying for the same promotion. Greta often underestimated Taylor, causing her significant stress. Everything seemed perfect as we celebrated our college successes together, reminiscing about the fun moments from the past. We frequently organized joint outings and invited each other to events. It was a solid friendship circle, or so I thought. But as time went on, I started noticing something unsettling. The chemistry between Taylor and Ryan began to shift, growing increasingly intimate. One summer evening, we were all gathered for a barbecue at our place. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the backyard. I watched as Taylor and Ryan stood close, laughing and exchanging playful banter that seemed a bit too flirty. I tried to convince myself that it was just friendly closeness, but a sinking feeling in my gut suggested otherwise. I remember glancing at Leo, who was standing nearby, noticing my nervousness. "Hey man, everything all right?" he asked, concern etching his features. "It just feels a bit off, you know," I replied, trying to sound nonchalant, but the words felt heavy on my tongue. Leo shrugged, attempting to calm my spiraling thoughts. "You're overthinking it. They're just friends having a good time." But deep down, I could sense a shift in the air. The way Ryan looked at Taylor was different, more intense, more meaningful. I brushed it off, blaming my paranoia. After all, we were all friends. I should trust my wife, right? But as the night wore on, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was brewing between them. Taylor, usually vibrant and full of life, was leaning in a little too close to Ryan, laughing a bit too freely. My heart raced, and I began to feel that gnawing jealousy seep in. The evening ended, but the feeling lingered like a bad taste in my mouth. I told myself it was nothing, but the seeds of doubt had been planted. I couldn't help but wonder, was I just being insecure, or was there more to this friendship than I realized? That night, as I lay in bed next to Taylor, I tried to dismiss the growing unease. I watched her sleep, her face peaceful and serene. She had no idea what was brewing in my mind. How could I confront her about something I had no proof of? "Just breathe," I whispered to myself. "It's probably nothing." But deep down, I knew this wasn't going to end well. Little did I know, the cracks in our relationship were only beginning to form, setting the stage for a much darker story that was about to unfold. A few weeks had passed since that unsettling barbecue, and I thought maybe I was just overreacting. Life went on as usual, but the nagging feeling in the back of my mind never really faded. One evening, I was sitting at my desk, lost in my work, when my phone buzzed. It was Greg, an old acquaintance from college. "Hey, Owen, how have you been, man?" he asked, his voice bright over the line. "Hey, Greg, I'm good, just busy with work. How about you?" Not bad, he replied, but there was something in his tone that felt off. As we talked, the conversation took a turn. "Actually, I saw Taylor the other night, he said, his voice losing some of its warmth. Thought it was you at first. She was at that Italian place downtown, hugging some guy. My heart sank. Hugging who? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I think his name is Ryan? You know, your friend from college? It felt like the ground dropped from beneath me. I couldn't breathe for a moment, my mind racing. Ryan? My best friend? The guy I had known for years? I felt anger bubble up within me, mixed with despair. How could this be happening? Yeah, I know him. I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Look, I'm not saying anything's going on, but it looked pretty cozy from where I was sitting, Greg continued. Just thought you should know. Thanks for the heads up, Greg, I said, though my mind was spinning. After hanging up, I felt like I was in free fall. It was as if the whole world was conspiring against me. I needed to talk to Taylor, to confront her about this, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she'd deny everything. That night, as we settled in a bed, I steeled myself to bring it up. Taylor, can we talk? She turned to me, her eyes curious. Sure, what's on your mind? I heard something today. I began, my heart pounding. Greg mentioned he saw you at a restaurant with Ryan. He said you were hugging. Her expression changed, but only slightly. Oh, that? We ran into each other while I was out with some colleagues. It was nothing, Owen. Just a friendly hug. Just a friendly hug? I echoed, trying to keep my tone neutral. Greg said it looked pretty cozy. She rolled her eyes, the annoyance creeping into her voice. You know how Greg is. He always over-exaggerates. It wasn't anything. We were just catching up. I stared at her, searching her face for any signs of deceit, but she seemed genuinely oblivious. My gut twisted. I wanted to believe her, but after everything that had happened with Ryan, I just couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I let it go for that night, but I couldn't sleep. My mind raced, replaying the conversation. I felt like I was losing grip on my own life. The next day, I decided I needed to talk to someone who might provide a clearer perspective. Macy. Meeting her at a local cafe. I was anxious. We had always been friendly, but this felt different now. I needed answers, and I hoped she could shed some light. Macy. I started after we exchanged pleasantries. Can we talk about Ryan? Her expression changed, and I noticed her hesitate. Sure, what's up? I've been feeling uneasy about him lately, I admitted. I heard he was acting a little strange. Has he mentioned anything to you? She sighed, her eyes darting to the window. Yeah, he's been a bit off. Staying late at work, missing family dinners. I thought it was just stress from work, but I felt something weird too. He's been distant. My stomach dropped. So, you think something's going on? I don't know, Owen. I've had my suspicions, but I didn't want to believe it. It's just not like him, she replied, her voice laced with concern. We exchanged stories and theories, and I couldn't help but feel a wave of anxiety wash over me. It was as if the ground beneath me was shifting again, and I was losing my footing. Do you think it could be about Taylor? I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Macy looked away, her face a mixture of concern and sadness. I don't know. I hope not. But Ryan has always had a thing for strong women, you know? Those words hung in the air like a dark cloud, and my heart raced. Doubt flooded my mind, gnawing at my insides. I had trusted Ryan, counted him among my closest friends. And now, it felt like I was staring into an abyss, not knowing how deep it went. As I left the cafe, the weight of uncertainty pressed down on me. I felt like I was caught in a storm, the winds of betrayal howling all around. I couldn't trust anyone anymore, not even Taylor. I needed to dig deeper, to find the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a much darker journey. The next few days were a blur of anxiety and unease. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything around me was crumbling. I needed answers. But the only place I felt like I could find solace was at the cafe, where I'd arranged to meet Macy again. It was a cozy spot with soft lighting and the rich aroma of coffee wafting through the air, but even the comforting environment couldn't fully ease my mind. As I walked in, I spotted Macy sitting at a corner table, her expression pensive as she stirred her coffee. I slid into the seat across from her, my heart heavy with the weight of the conversations that lay ahead. Thanks for meeting me, I said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. Of course, Owen. I'm glad we're talking, she replied, her voice soft but laced with an undercurrent of tension. I took a deep breath, diving into my concerns. I've been watching Taylor and Ryan, and it just feels like they've been acting differently lately. I don't know, maybe I'm imagining things, but something's off. Macy leaned in, her brows furrowing. I've noticed it too. Ryan has been distant. He used to be so engaged during our get-togethers, but now, he's missing from family dinners, disappearing without explanation. It's not like him. I could see the pain in her eyes. It's hard to admit, but I've started questioning everything. I can't help but wonder if something is happening between them. Tears welled up in Macy's eyes, and she quickly blinked them away. I didn't want to believe it either, but my gut is telling me something's wrong. Ryan used to love Taylor. He always spoke highly of her. I thought they were just friends, but now it feels like I'm losing both of them. Her sadness mirrored my own, and it hit me harder than I expected. We both sat in silence, grappling with the emotional weight of our respective situations. It was a strange feeling, this connection forged by shared betrayal. Macy, I started hesitantly. I know this might be a weird thing to say, but we're both hurting. Maybe we should consider doing something about it. Something that makes them feel the pain we're feeling. She looked at me, her expression shifting from sadness to curiosity. What do you mean? Revenge, I said, the word rolling off my tongue like poison. What if we did something to show them that we're not just going to stand by and let them walk all over us? For a moment, she sat back, contemplating my words. I don't know, Owen. That sounds risky, but I can't deny I've thought about it too. The conversation flowed, and we found ourselves discussing all the possible ways we could make them pay for their betrayal. It felt exhilarating to think about taking control, to reclaim the power they'd stripped from us. As the discussion deepened, the tension between us grew. We shared our pain, our frustration, and our anger, and it was almost intoxicating. I found myself leaning closer, drawn in by her vulnerability. I reached across the table, and she took my hand. The moment hung in the air, charged with unspoken possibilities. Do you really think we should do this? Macy asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but there was a spark in her eyes that suggested she was ready to dive into the unknown. I don't know, I admitted, my heart racing. But at this point, I feel like we owe it to ourselves to get some kind of satisfaction from this mess. We exchanged a look, one filled with shared pain, desire, and a hint of mischief. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us. In that instant, the emotional tension and disappointment created an opening I hadn't anticipated. Before I fully processed what was happening, I leaned in and kissed her. It was unexpected, fueled by the chaos swirling around us, and it caught us both off guard. But as I pulled back, I saw the desire mirrored in her eyes, and it was as if a dam had broken. We didn't just share a moment of intimacy. We ignited a spark that had been buried under layers of hurt and betrayal. That night, we ended up at my apartment, and it felt like we were crossing a line together, a line that might lead us into deeper waters, but we didn't care. The thought of revenge was a seductive promise, and the connection we formed felt like a balm for our wounds. As we spent the night together, I couldn't help but feel a rush of adrenaline mixed with guilt. We were betraying our partners, but the thrill of it overshadowed everything else. We fell into a rhythm that felt raw and real, each touch igniting a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in ages. But in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered that this wouldn't end well. I brushed it aside, lost in the moment. We were both so consumed by our pain that we didn't think about the consequences of our actions. All we could see was a path of revenge opening before us, a way to reclaim our power in a situation that had turned our worlds upside down. Little did I know this was just the beginning. The choices we made that night would lead us down a path we couldn't have imagined, one filled with deception, betrayal, and unforeseen consequences that would haunt us for a long time to come. After that fateful night, the thrill of our shared betrayal sparked something deep within both Macy and me. We were no longer just victims. We were ready to become avengers, poised to strike back at the people who had wronged us. Our minds raced with ideas as we plotted our revenge, the adrenaline coursing through our veins like a potent drug. Okay, I said, leaning over my dining room table, surrounded by takeout containers and half-empty coffee cups. We need to hit them where it hurts. They need to feel the consequences of their actions. Macy nodded, her eyes glinting with determination. I've been thinking about Taylor's big article. She's been working on it for weeks to secure that promotion. What if we, I don't know, sabotaged it? I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. How would we do that? That's the thing, she said, her excitement palpable. I overheard her talking about it at the cafe the other day. She's been pouring her heart into this piece. If we can get our hands on it while she's not looking, we can make some changes. A plan began to form, and I could feel the heat of anger fueling our resolve. What kind of changes? We could insert some false information, she suggested, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Something that could ruin her credibility. I let out a slow breath, the moral implications swirling in my mind. It feels wrong, doesn't it? Macy's expression hardened. Not as wrong as what they've done to us. We're just leveling the playing field. That was the moment I knew we were fully committed to this dark path. A few days later, Macy called me, excitement lacing her voice. I found the perfect opportunity. Taylor left her laptop open at the cafe today. I think she was too engrossed in work to notice. I can distract her while you sneak in. Are you sure you want to do this? I asked, even as a part of me thrummed with anticipation. Absolutely, she replied, her confidence pushing me to agree. I'll handle the distraction. Just be ready. The plan was set, and I felt a thrill wash over me. The thought of finally confronting Taylor and Ryan's betrayal gave me a rush. The stakes felt high, but it was nothing compared to the turmoil we had both endured. The day of reckoning arrived, and Macy and I orchestrated our attack with meticulous precision. I waited anxiously for her call, pacing my apartment, a storm of emotions swirling within me. Then my phone buzzed, and I leaped at the chance. Now, she said, her voice barely containing the excitement. I slipped into the cafe, spotting Taylor at her usual corner table, completely absorbed in her work. I felt a twinge of guilt as I approached, but the anger I harbored quickly drowned it out. Macy approached Taylor, a bright smile plastered on her face. Hey, Taylor, how's the article coming along? Oh, just fine, Taylor replied, her eyes flicking up from her laptop momentarily before returning to the screen. Just a few edits left, and then I should be good to go. Great. Mind if I sit with you for a moment? Macy asked, her tone cheerful. Of course. Just give me a second, Taylor replied, still focused on her screen. As Macy kept Taylor engaged in conversation, I moved in quietly, my heart racing. I quickly found Taylor's document open on the screen. My hands trembled slightly as I began to type, inserting misleading data and twisted statements into her carefully crafted article. Each keystroke felt like a stab of satisfaction, and I could already picture her horror when she realized what had happened. Okay, all done, I whispered to myself as I saved the changes. My breath caught in my throat as I quickly moved back to a safe distance. Did you find everything okay? Macy asked Taylor, her voice smooth and casual. Yeah, just putting the finishing touches on it, Taylor said, oblivious to the sabotage that had just occurred. Macy continued to engage her, carefully steering the conversation away from the article while I slipped out of the cafe, heart pounding with excitement and fear. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in a long time. But that wasn't all we had planned. While Macy distracted Taylor, she had also taken the opportunity to reach out to her father, a powerful figure in the journalism world. Later that day, Macy filled me in. I told my dad everything about Ryan and how he's been acting. He's furious. He said he can pull a few strings to make sure Ryan pays for what he's done. I couldn't help but feel a rush of exhilaration. Are you serious? What's he going to do? He has connections with the editors at Ryan's company. He can make a few calls and ensure they get wind of his behavior, she replied, a satisfied smile spreading across her face. The thrill of our revenge seemed to swell as we plotted further. We decided that a public scene would be the grand finale, one that would leave both Taylor and Ryan exposed for the world to see. We arranged for a gathering at a local bar, inviting friends and a few acquaintances. I felt a mix of excitement and nerves as I prepared for the moment when the truth would come crashing down around them. As the evening unfolded, I could see Taylor and Ryan arrive, laughing and oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. They were too comfortable, too confident, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction as I watched them. With a few drinks in me, I gathered the courage to approach them. "Hey guys, having a good time?" I said, forcing a casual tone. "Yeah, just enjoying the night," Taylor replied, her eyes sparkling. I shared a look with Macy across the room, and she nodded, signaling that it was time. "Oh, by the way," I began, my heart racing. "Did you hear about Taylor's article?" Ryan's smile faltered slightly. "What about it?" I leaned in closer, savoring the moment. "You know, the one that was supposed to secure her promotion? It's about to get a lot of attention, like really bad attention." Taylor's expression shifted, confusion and concern flooding her features. "What do you mean?" At that moment, Macy joined us, her demeanor confident. "Yeah, about that. Oh, and I may have made a few changes to your precious article. You might want to check it out." Before she could fully process what was happening, the tension in the room shifted dramatically. Ryan's face paled, and I could feel the eyes of everyone around us turning toward the unfolding drama. "What are you talking about?" Taylor demanded, her voice rising. "Let's just say that your little secrets are about to be exposed," I replied, relishing the moment. The room erupted in whispers, and the reality of our revenge started to sink in. Taylor's face turned red as she realized what we had done. Ryan, caught off guard, could only stare in disbelief. We watched as the consequences of their actions began to unravel. The whispers turned to gasps, and I could see the weight of their betrayal crashing down around them. In that moment, Macy and I shared a look of triumph, knowing we had struck a blow that would reverberate through their lives. Afterward, as we stepped outside to breathe the cool night air, a sense of exhilaration washed over me. "We did it, Macy. They'll never see it coming." She smiled, a wicked glint in her eyes. "And this is just the beginning. They need to know what it feels like to be betrayed." We celebrated our victory, feeling powerful for the first time in ages. Little did we know that this act of revenge would set off a chain reaction, leading us into a web of consequences that neither of us could foresee. But for that night, we reveled in the thrill of our actions, feeling like we had finally taken control of our lives, even if it was through chaos and pain. The dust had barely settled after the public exposure of Taylor and Ryan's betrayals, but the fallout felt like a whirlwind that swept through our lives, changing everything in its path. In the aftermath, I found myself navigating a world that felt completely different, one tinged with anger, sadness, and a strange sense of liberation. After the divorce, I leaned heavily on Macy. Our shared experiences bonded us in ways I hadn't anticipated. We became each other's refuge, finding solace in our mutual pain and disappointment. The late-night phone calls and coffee shop conversations became a lifeline, allowing us to unburden our hearts as we delved into our feelings of betrayal. "I never thought I'd be here, you know," I confessed one evening as we sat on my couch, the remnants of dinner scattered on the table. "I thought Taylor and I were solid. We built this life together, and now it feels like it was all a lie." Macy nodded, her expression empathetic. "I feel the same way about Ryan. I never imagined he could betray me like that. It's like I don't even know who he is anymore." We exchanged stories of our pasts, our hopes, and our fears, growing closer with each revelation. But even in our connection, I struggled with feelings of distrust. Despite Macy's kindness and understanding, I found myself hesitant to fully let go of my past wounds. One night, as we were watching a movie, I felt a familiar tension creeping in. "Macy, do you think we're rushing into this?" I asked, uncertainty lacing my voice. "I mean, it's only been a few months since everything." Her face turned serious, and she paused for a moment. "I get it, Owen. Trust is hard to rebuild, especially after what we've both been through. I'm still working through my feelings, too. I want us to be honest with each other." It was a moment of clarity for both of us. We had to face our insecurities head-on if we wanted to move forward. I appreciated her honesty and felt the weight of our shared trauma pull us deeper together, even as we treaded carefully. Macy decided to take a proactive approach to her healing. She began attending therapy to cope with her emotions and also joined support groups for people who had experienced infidelity. I admired her strength, even as I felt a pang of guilt for not being able to heal as quickly. I think it's important for us to have our own paths of healing, she said one day after returning from a support group meeting. I want to be strong for myself first before diving into anything new with us. Her words struck a chord. I realized I hadn't fully processed the betrayal and its aftermath. I threw myself into work to avoid confronting my feelings, but they lingered just beneath the surface. Meanwhile, Taylor struggled to rebuild her life. The news of her betrayal spread like wildfire, leaving her reputation in tatters. It was painful to watch, but a part of me couldn't help but feel justified. I'd lost my marriage because of her choices, and now she was facing the consequences. I caught glimpses of her on social media, her once vibrant posts replaced by dark updates and desperate pleas for support. Looking for my next opportunity, she wrote in one post, the tone defeated. I didn't respond, even though the old feelings of love and anger clashed inside me. Ryan, on the other hand, descended into a pit of despair. I saw him at a bar one night, slumped over a drink, his eyes glassy and lost. He had traded in his vibrant laughter for a somber silence, drowning his sorrows in alcohol. It was hard to reconcile the friend I had known with the man he had become. Macy, have you seen Ryan lately? I asked one evening as we were cooking dinner together. He looks like he's falling apart. I heard he's been drinking a lot, she replied, her voice tinged with concern. I don't know what to do about it. He's still my husband in a way, and I hate seeing him like this. I get that, I said, stirring the sauce on the stove. But he made his choices, just like Taylor did. They need to face the consequences. Despite the mutual support we offered each other, I still felt the shadows of our past creeping in. I was afraid to fully commit to a relationship again, even with Macy. I often caught myself holding back, fearful of getting hurt again. As the weeks passed, our relationship deepened, but the road was rocky. We tried to create a new dynamic together, often clashing as we navigated our fears and uncertainties. Owen, you're not the only one struggling, she would remind me during heated discussions. I need you to meet me halfway. I wanted to, I truly did, but every time we got close, a wall went up and I couldn't help but pull back. I'm sorry, I just can't shake this feeling. I'd say, frustration mounting in my chest. I understand, she'd reply, tears glistening in her eyes. But if we're going to make this work, we need to be open. We can't keep dancing around our past forever. It was a constant push and pull. But through it all, we found moments of light amid the darkness. Shared laughter over inside jokes, the warmth of our hands brushing against each other, the comfort of knowing we weren't alone in this chaotic mess. Despite our individual struggles, we held on to each other, hoping that in time, we would both heal and build something stronger than before. As we faced the repercussions of our past choices, I couldn't help but wonder if we could truly find a way to rebuild our lives together, or if we were destined to repeat the same mistakes that had shattered our worlds in the first place. For now, we took it one day at a time, clinging to the hope that we could find our way back to a life worth living, one that didn't revolve around betrayal and heartache. But as I looked at Macy, I knew we still had a long way to go. Time has a strange way of healing wounds, but it can also make old grudges fester if left unchecked. As the months passed, I found myself navigating a new life with Macy, but the shadows of our past were never far behind. Our relationship had evolved, yet remnants of hurt and doubt lingered in the corners, casting a shadow over the potential we had built. We both tried to forge ahead, but the weight of our betrayals often hung between us like an unwelcome guest. The thrill of our revenge had dulled, leaving behind a bitterness that was hard to shake. I began to notice subtle changes in Macy, too. She wanted to move forward, but every now and then, I could see her wrestling with her doubts about me. Macy, can we talk? I asked one evening as we settled on the couch, the silence of our apartment pressing in around us. Sure, she replied, looking up from her phone. I feel like we've been dancing around our issues. Sometimes I think about how we started this. Our revenge, everything that happened. I just can't help but wonder if it's really healthy for us to keep pushing forward without addressing it. Her expression shifted, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. I get it, Owen. I've been feeling the same way. Sometimes I wonder if we rushed into this relationship too quickly. We both have so much baggage, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm still holding on to my distrust. I think I need some time to sort out my feelings. I admitted, my heart heavy with the truth of it. I'm considering seeing a psychologist to help me process everything. I need to understand how the betrayal affected me. Macy's eyes softened, and I could see her understanding. I think that's a good idea. We need to take care of ourselves before we can truly be there for each other. We both knew this was a pivotal moment, one that could either strengthen our bond or drive us apart. I decided to take that break, recognizing that I needed to confront my demons head-on. It wasn't just about Taylor or Ryan anymore. It was about my own healing. I started visiting a therapist, pouring out my thoughts and feelings in those small, unassuming rooms. Each session was a revelation, peeling back layers I hadn't realized were there. I began to confront the hurt and anger that had taken root in my heart. The therapist helped me navigate through the mess, making me realize that the betrayal was not just a reflection of my worth, but also a testament to the failures of others. But while I was on this journey of self-discovery, Macy was also struggling. "It's hard, Owen," she confessed one evening over dinner. "I want to move on, but I keep finding myself doubting whether we made the right choices. Did our revenge really help us? Or did it just add another layer of complication?" Her words struck a chord. I could see her wrestling with the repercussions of our decisions, and it made me realize that we both had a long way to go before we could truly heal. "Maybe we need to be honest about what we want," I suggested. "This relationship feels complicated. Perhaps it's time to reevaluate." As our discussions deepened, it became clear that we were still navigating the aftermath of our pasts. Each of us had different healing timelines, and while I was making strides, Macy struggled to fully trust me again. There were days when we connected deeply, and then there were moments where old insecurities crept in, clouding our interactions. One night, after a particularly tense discussion, I felt the weight of everything crash down on me. "I think it's best if we part ways," I finally said, my voice barely a whisper. "I care about you, but I don't think I can give you what you need right now, and I don't want to hold you back." Macy looked at me, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't want to lose you, Owen, but I understand. We've been through so much." We embraced, the warmth of our connection flooding back, if only for a moment. It was bittersweet, knowing that we had grown close through shared trauma, but recognizing that we needed to heal separately. Over the following weeks, we gradually drifted apart but remained friends, sharing the occasional text or coffee catch-up. As I moved through this transition, I found a renewed sense of clarity. I was rediscovering who I was outside the confines of my past relationship. Eventually, I met someone new. Her name was Alice. We met at a gallery opening, where I was showcasing some of my photography. She was vibrant, with an infectious laugh and a warmth that instantly drew me in. As we chatted, I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't expected. "I love your work," she said, admiring my photographs. "There's a raw honesty in your art that really resonates with me." I smiled, feeling a connection forming. With Alice, it was different. There were no ghosts of betrayal lurking in the background. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, and I felt a sense of trust blossoming between us. As our relationship deepened, I realized that Alice was helping me let go of my past. She didn't judge me for my experiences. Instead, she encouraged me to embrace my journey of healing. With her, I began to see that true happiness was possible, even after everything I had endured. One evening, as we strolled through a park, the sun setting behind us, I took her hand, a smile spreading across my face. "Thank you for being so understanding," I said, my heart full. I didn't think I could feel this way again. She squeezed my hand, her eyes sparkling. "We all have our pasts, Owen. What matters is how we choose to move forward. And I'm really excited about where this is heading." In that moment, I knew I had finally turned a corner. The journey hadn't been easy, but I had emerged stronger, more resilient. I had learned to confront my past, and now, with Alice by my side, I was ready to embrace the future. As I stepped into this new chapter of my life, I realized that true happiness lay ahead, and I was finally ready to chase it.